we should learn everything, but what is the solution to just remember all the articles and the concept?
Sorry. So that is like, advisory jurisdiction of Supreme Court. So how I teach this particular thing is like how to remember 143. So we know that like 143 is a code which lovers used to talk like I love you. That is 143. So here only the two lovers are there. One is President and the other one is Supreme Court.
First, what are the rights that people have? We live in a democratic country, right? We have the constitution, we have the power, and when we talk about the protest, people are protesting on the education system, the farmers protest, and
it's a beautiful concept called the right to recall. So right to recall is a beautiful concept. It is not implemented in India. So what is that exactly talks about? If you elect a candidate, you have to give a time period to that particular candidate. For example, 6 months or
so. Discriminate into two things. What are the duties of the government right now, and what are the rights of the people? Like people can do protest. Hello and welcome to the Legal Vibes. In this video, we will cover the part of the Constitution of India and talk about DPSP, fundamental right. And today we have a special guest, Professor Gireesh, and today we talk about the Constitution of India. Before the adoption of the Constitution, we have the colonial British period in which they don't do anything for the state. We don't have any welfare state. They use only the trading and basically the police state, right? And after the adoption of the Constitution, what are the major impacts which leaves in the India?
See, basically like what I can say precisely is like British is one of the reason which actually like led us to frame a constitution. So you just imagine if British would not have come to India, then maybe like we would not have made a constitution.
Yes.
So ultimately like the historical background of framing of constitution starts from 16th century. So it is like in different phases through different acts, and at last like in 19th century or maybe like 20th century, we just like we had pressed for a constitution through like many reforms and many struggles which happened under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi and all. So they're all like we all wanted, yes, India needs like something like we need freedom. So to enhance that freedom, to maintain that particular freedom in an outstanding way, or maybe like in an efficient way, we need a document. We need the support of a legal document. So that time like they were started like okay, we need, their demand actually started from beginning like in 1928 Nehru committee report, they specifically stressed, yes, we need a constitution. Purna Swaraj we need, at the same time we need a constitution. So after 1940 like we have started the work, and in 1946 we made a constituent assembly. Then it took almost 2 year 11 months 18 days, and now it's like the change is very evident, because before constitution and after constitution we can see the difference like a day and night. For example, after 1950 it is like a day, so we got the sunshine because of the constitution. Before that we were in like darkness.
Okay. So we are aware about the recent protest which is going on. I'm not going to the controversy part.
Yes. So it's a topic which is really like going on. So we are not in a position to say like precisely
anything. But I want you to give me two things. First, what are the rights that people have? We live in a democratic country, right? We have the constitution, we have the power, and when we talk about the protest, people are protesting on the education system, the farmers protest, and other so many things that going on right now. So discriminate into two things. What are the duties of the government right now, and what are the rights of the people? Like people can do protest. We have the right. Briefly tell me both the things.
See, we are living in a democratic world, and constitution itself provides the people like there are a lot of rights. Fundamental rights are there. So they have the freedom, they have the right to criticize the government, to do protest against the government. But the most important thing is like the criticism must be like a constructive criticism. It should not be like it should not insult someone. It should not insult a person's post, like any designatory post.
Okay.
So we are like we are living in a democratic world, or in a country where we are actually free to criticize the government. We are free to protest. but that protest is within the reasonable restriction. So if they exceed the reasonable restriction, government has a duty to prevent it.
Okay.
So that reasonable restrictions, for example, every right the person enjoys, for example, even if it is a citizen, even if it is a non-citizen in India, if he enjoys each and every right, it is subject to some reasonable restriction or limitations are there. So why that limitations are there? Because rights are not absolute. Every right, even it is a fundamental right or a political right, right to vote, everything is subject to reasonable limitations or restrictions. So that is absolutely we need it. And as far as the time passes, people must be able to protest. At the same time, if the protest exceeds the limit, the government must make some mechanism to prevent it also.
Okay.
So that mechanism, but again it should not be we should, the government should not torture the persons or citizen. They are allowed to protest because we are in a democratic world, and they have to do the mechanism, they have to prevent or do the restriction in a reasonable way also. So it is like mutual understanding. At the same time, you take respect and give respect.
Yeah.
See, if you respect the people, then people will also respect the government.
Yeah.
So that is what I feel right now also. The protest is going on, but it should not exceed the limit. If it exceeds the limit, then government has no other option.
Okay, so people have their right to protest with the reasonable restriction, right? And what about the government duties toward the protest?
Obviously, see, government if the government is not functioning as per the constitution, see, government has a duty to duty to give it back. Otherwise, the government the government may collapse. Okay. Because ultimately, say, okay, so to some extent they can they can use their power and sometimes they can restrict it. But after sometimes ultimately after 3 or 4 years again election will come, so people will choose the
right one.
Right government.
Okay, so not going to that.
So again, what I'm saying is constitution itself gives that ultimate authority in the hands of people to select their candidate.
Oh, okay, coming to that part, as we law student, we are studying right now constitution and all the part. We reach to the 18 years, we have right to vote.
Yes.
As a voter, I have so many rights that I can ask or right to seek to the politician, that the qualification of education or any criminal background, right? So when we study constitution, we know this kind of a rights that we have. But what about those people, those normal people, they don't have an educational background or they don't even aware about their own rights? What are the steps we can take to the legal awareness or the rights we can aware them?
Okay, so when it comes to common people,
people,
they are still lacking a lot.
Yeah.
So see, that is I feel see, like you said, awareness, okay, to some extent it is okay, but see, there is a mechanism before election they have to all the candidates, they have to submit their nomination. So in that particular thing their what character and everything must be proper. For example, no cases must be against them. Their qualification again it is not a yardstick to measure the efficiency of a leader. For example, see some leaders, they may not be educated, but at the same time they are very capable. Some may be educated, but they may not be capable. So leadership quality sometimes it depends. It depends upon each individual. So when it comes to common people, there should be some mechanism okay, if they are willing, what I feel is if they are willing to know, okay, about all the transparency that is happening when it comes to election and all, there are mechanisms they will be able to know it. So it is not what to say hidden detail or anything like that. If they are willing, still there are mechanisms where we have the opportunity to know it. So I feel it is not a big problem in India. So what is a big problem is there are some things where sometimes people will feel okay, we elected this particular candidate, but he is just giving the offerings. But after becoming MLA or MP or even a minister, if we meet him, then he won't mind us. He is in his own world.
Yeah.
So that is that is the problem. Then see, what I feel is there is a beautiful concept called the right to recall. So right to recall is a beautiful concept. It is not implemented in India. So what is that exactly talks about? If you elect a candidate, you have to give a time period to that particular candidate. For example, 6 months or 1 year. And whatever the things that he
Then for the
he
people.
gave like offering. For example, I will complete this. If I become the MLA or if I become the minister, I will fulfill all these things. So that within that 1 year, what all things he has fulfilled. If he has not done anything, then people will get a choice to recall him.
Okay.
So it's like, right to recall means, okay, if you are not satisfied with the performance, even before the expiry of 5 year, within 6 months or within 1 year, you can recall the candidate. So that is a mechanism. But when it comes to India, I don't know whether it is possible or we have to find an alternative like that. Otherwise, offerings will be always there. But we will get another chance only after 5 years. Then that is the problem. And 5 years is a big term.
Big term. Yes, yeah. Okay. So when we talk about the constitution, we have a major two thing, which is fundamental rights and DPSP. So it is not possible to just remember all those articles. Like we have we should learn everything, but what is the solution to just remember all the articles and the concept?
So not only fundamental rights, DPSP, I think
other part
all
also?
the other articles, I think we have almost 395 articles.
More than that.
And after amendment, right now we have 448 articles.
Yes.
So total number of articles in Indian Constitution is 448.
448.
So for a human, it is very it's a
difficult.
It is a Himalayan task
Yes.
to remember everything. But some of the provisions are very important when it comes to Constitution, when it comes to BNS. So I will the way that I teach students or the way that I studied, I will tell you some instances. So there is a beautiful provision in Constitution called Article 143.
Yeah.
So that is advisory jurisdiction of Supreme Court. So whenever the President refer a matter to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court will give advice to President. So how I teach this particular thing is how to remember 143. So we know that 143 is a code which lovers used to talk I love you. That is 143. So here only the two lovers are there. One is President and the other one is Supreme Court. So whenever you know that lovers if they ask some questions, only the lovers will give the answer.
Okay.
Like that the Supreme Court will give the advice. So he is the one lover and President is the other lover. So whenever President he face any problem, he ask the advice of Supreme Court. Okay. So he will 143.
Okay.
So this is one way which we can remember that particular article.
There are so many articles.
So many articles are there, but it is commonly it is very impossible to remember all the articles.
Yeah.
But advisory jurisdiction is an important article. Again, one article is Article 123. That is ordinance.
Okay.
Ordinance simply means a temporary law which is promulgated by President whenever there is an emergency, whenever there is an epidemic or something like that. So how to remember that particular thing? At what time we will say 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, ready 1, 2, 3. So ready 1, 2, 3 means
we are just
we are going to do something like an urgent situation. Urgent situation is going to take place. So how to remember that? 1, 2, 3 means ordinance. Ordinance means what? A temporary law which will be promulgated during emergency situation. So like that we will be we have to connect with our real life examples. Whatever the real life example is closely connected with you please.
How we will remember the fundamental rights?
Fundamental rights again many fundamental rights are there. Again I will tell you, you will never forget Article 14, that is right to equality. Then you will never forget Article 19. So Article 19 I will tell like this. For example, you all will get freedom. We always used to say parents used to say after 18 you will get some freedom. So after 18 what is the next number? 19. So 19, I am at the age of 19, so I will all have the freedom of speech and expression, everything is there. So I will have the freedom to marry also, but at 21 only. So again 24 is talking about child labor. So 24, 23 sometimes we will have confusion. So how to remember 24 is child labor is child labor means those who are under the age of 14, they are prohibited from doing serious jobs. Or maybe hazardous job in factories or maybe industries. So what is the last digit of 14? 14. Okay, what is the last digit of 24?
4.
24. So we won't be confused with 23. So 24.
24. Okay.
So like that we will be able to remember some of the articles. Many tricks are there. See, I am also a human. Sometimes I also face the same difficulty that you have faced. That is why I used to think, okay, how to remember this. So sometimes we have to connect it.
Okay. Now coming back to the organs. Okay, we have three organs: judiciary, executive, and legislature. So, coming back to the legislature. So, what are the works of three organs?
These three organs are connected. We can't say separation of power in its exact sense in India. Sometimes if the executive is not functioning according to the provisions of constitution, judiciary has to interfere. So whether you are doing properly, if you are not doing properly, I have to declare this action as invalid. That is judicial review. So that checks and balances is an important feature among the three organs. So each organ has its specific function, but at the same time they are connected.
Yeah.
So lawmaking authority, parliament, if they make a law, if it is against the constitution also, judiciary has to interfere. Like that many laws were declared invalid also. Recently, in 2018 or 19, adultery was declared as unconstitutional, or it is not at all a crime. Adultery in IPC. So again homosex in IPC. Again it is not it is not a crime. If it is with consent, it is not a crime. So all these three organs are connected. And they have to sometimes if one organ exceeds the power within its limit, the other organ called the judiciary has to interfere. That is what I feel that kind of a interconnection is there between or among the three organs.
So right now we have a lot of amendments, right?
Yes.
100 and more than 100 amendments. So
I think almost we have 106 amendments.
6 amendments right now. So some are the special amendment like that we remember. That's for example 42nd amendment, 77 amendment, and 101. Like for example 42nd we have the 3 words: socialist, secular, and integrity. And in 77 we have SC and ST power. They have reservation power, and 101 GST which is introduced. So apart from these, how we will remember the amendments?
Oh, it is not common. To be very frank, it is not possible to remember 106 articles or maybe 106 amendments are there. It is not possible. But okay, 42nd we will never forget. Again, 44th is connected with the 42nd. How it is connected? Because a lot of provisions were inserted by 42nd amendment. But when 44th amendment came, a lot of these provisions were deleted by the 44th amendment. So 42nd and 44th is connected. Now when it comes to voting age, one amendment is there. Initially the voting age was 21. Now it is 18. So again 61st amendment. So see, as a law student, as someone who practices law, as someone who teaches law, it is not possible to remember all the amendments. But okay, somewhat 42nd, 44th, 71st, 73rd, 86th. What is the specialty of 86th amendment? 86th, they have just given that right to education. For example, that compulsory education to children between 6 to 14 years of age. You know about the article 21A. Right to education is a part of right to life. So amendments, what I feel is 106 amendments are there. Each amendment is giving a life to the constitution. That is why constitution is called a living document.
Yeah.
People may die, but constitution will never die.
Okay. So now coming to the concluding part. So when we talk about the constitution, it is a living document, right?
Yes.
And when we read the documents, and we found that it is mainly government should make decision or do things for the welfare state, right to education or other things. But do we see the reality and documents are both are not connected? Like when we read a lot of things, but when we look into the reality, it is a different perspective.
Yes.
What is your opinion on that?
See, it's a hard reality that we have to accept. Not only constitution, every act. Most of the act, they are very effective in paper.
Yeah.
But when it comes to reality,
it is not effective.
There is a huge gap between reality and what we see in paper.
And do you think that, it is just my perspective, when politicians are more educated, when they know about those rights and duties, they will performing and making country more welfare. I know the leader qualities they have, but when they are more educated, they will perform well. Do you think that?
Yeah, to some extent it plays a crucial role, education.
Yeah.
But the most important thing, like, in what way they got education? What type of education,
They have.
made them a wise person? For example, people may have degrees,
Yeah.
but they may not be wise.
Yeah.
I have seen a lot of people who may have, maybe like a
PhD
postdoctorate, PhD or anything like that. But when it comes to, the basic thing like behaving, behaving with your friend or maybe like student or maybe like colleague. So they lack that particular, that basic manners. So same thing is applicable to a leader also. If the leader is educated, if he has seen the world like anything, and if he has empathy means we have to always think from the shoes of other person.
Yes.
So what if I face the same situation, what I am supposed to do? So that empathy plus that wise nature, plus if the person is educated, he will be an outstanding leader.
Okay.
He can serve the nation like anything. Not only serve the nation, first of all he will serve the family, then the society, then at last he will serve the nation.
Few days ago my mind was like people should aware, and it is not only the government who should do the things for the people. People are more aware, but right now my mind is like, no, there should be a balance between the government and the person. Like both are the equally responsible, and responsibility are on the both hand. Like when we talk about the constitution, we will say that we the people of India, people have the power. But when we look the reality, we should know that it is not only the government hand, or it is not only the people. There must be a balance between them. But right now my mind is glitching and saying that no, the power that we gave to any political party, they have more power than the local people. What is your opinion, and what is the resolution or solution for it?
See, like you said, many things are beyond control.
Okay.
For example, like you said, first thing is the attitude of the people, they have to change it.
For example?
For example, I will tell you one instance. We are deeply embedded in many things, our beliefs and everything. Sometimes it is very conventional. Sometimes that stereotyping is there. I will give an example. Suppose you just imagine a girl, she has been working as an air hostess. Okay, out of something at once her boyfriend, just imagine, I am giving a situation, threw some acid on her face. So after that particular incident, all those faces, all the faces affected with acid, and it is that mark and everything is there. So we have to know if she wants to continue that particular job, air hostess, will the company whether they are willing to continue her service?
No, they will not allow.
So why? Because still people are believing okay, the face should look very beautiful. So what if it happens to a lot of girls, and they acid attack happens to a lot of girls, and after that particular incident, what will be their future? So there we have to think from where we have to start.
Yes.
The attitude of the people, they must change it. It is like beauty is not always it is what we see in face. See, you should not equate beauty with the job that you are supposed to do. A lot of things we have to think very deeply.
Okay, now it's my question is not about the perspective of somebody attitude, you are talking about the people attitude, and what about the power the government holds?
See, government power, like you said, if a political party became dominant like anything, we can see
it's not remaining the constitution, it's not remaining the democratic country.
We can see a lot of negatives there also.
Yeah.
So if that is that is why I always feel that whoever the party who rules our nation or even a state, we must have a strong opposition. If we don't have a strong opposition, always that one party dominance will be there. So we always that balance must be always there.
For example, the organs we have.
Yes. See, if we compare political party as Bahubali, then someone like Rana must be there opposite.
Yes.
If the hero is there,
Villains.
if hero is strong, villain should be also strong.
Yes.
So sometimes the ruling government may become the villain. So that time the opposition should be the hero.
Yes.
So that balance must be there.
Okay.
So apart from that, like as people, like I said, they have to change their attitude also when it comes to many things.
Okay. Okay, sum up with the constitution. Now, if we have to read a lot of case laws on particularly constitution, can you give some suggestion or advice to what are the case we should learn? Like we should remember those case laws, those important case laws on constitution.
Okay, so the case laws are like a lot are there. So I would recommend, for example, you all know about the case Keshavananda Bharati. It's like I think every law student, everyone knows it. But it's
from that,
it's a beautiful case. At the same time, it's like Maneka Gandhi case is
Maneka
there.
Gandhi, yeah.
Then DK Basu versus State of West
Yes.
Bengal. It's also a very popular case. Then when it comes to recent case laws, like what I would like to suggest is like I really like the judgment which was pronounced in what Navadeh Singh Johar versus Union of India.
Yes.
That same sex is like legalized in India, and triple talaq case also. That Shaira Banu case. And when it comes to like a lot of cases, Karak Singh case is there, privacy case, Puttusamy case is there. Many case laws are there. Even like some of the case laws I personally didn't like the judgment also or decision also. One of that case is like Shreya Singhal versus Union of India.
I read recently.
66A. That was pronounced in 2016, but it talks about like sending offensive messages through online. It was earlier an offense.
Yes.
But because of that judgment, it is not an offense. But now you please analyze the reality. If anyone can go to someone's profile and like comment and I say a lot of abusive words. So there is no mechanism
Boundary.
to prevent it.
Yeah.
So some of the judgments I personally don't agree. These are some of the case laws we can refer. A lot are there because constitution is like an ocean. See, as far as we swim the ocean, a lot to come.
Water.
If you read constitution 10 times, you will get 10 new information.
Okay.
So that is it's that much deep.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
For coming and having a conversation on
Thank you so much, Komal.
constitution. I hope this video finds you informative. See you in the next video.